Minecraft is a game full of patterns. Get wood, build a shelter, find ores. It can all feel like a never-ending loop. But what if this loop is all an experiment and you are unknowingly the test subject? Recently, I came across a video I wasn't supposed to see, with the title Weird Minecraft Bugs Bug Report 1. The thumbnail looked fairly innocent, presenting itself as a random Minecraft bug by a channel named The Decayed, with 9 other videos that didn't quite feel right to me either. Although wondering what type of bug I was about to see, I clicked, finding myself watching 2 players walking through a forest. As they start to type, we learn quickly we're watching someone called Sandy.
Man, that was fun.
Joined by a friend named Cargo.
Yeah, man.
They talk about how they had fun, but didn't find enough resources and potentially needing to go back.
We didn't really get too much stuff though.
And that if they wanted to upgrade their tools,
we don't have the best tools right now, so we should go mine.
And so after stopping by the storage room to drop off their resources, they went ahead with their plan to strip mine. But this is where I ask you to really pay attention to the chat, because how they discuss their plans to mine.
Alright, let's just get to Y11 and then we can strip mine.
And even how far to go down all seems fairly normal, with the video cutting ahead to the friendly duo coming across lava and choosing to turn back.
We'll come back later. Don't worry.
And so they run back up the stairs, onto their pathway and right back into the house until the video restarts from the very beginning. Huh, weird. But something's off, and as I kept watching, I freaked out once I realized that Sandy too had noticed the weird loop.
What? Why am I back here?
And yet Cargo,
Lol, yeah, that was pretty funny.
continued repeating his sentences.
Dude, what? Cargo.
We didn't really get too much stuff though.
Are you okay?
We'd have to keep watching to find out, as Sandy keeps typing,
I'm having such a weird deja vu right now.
even attempting to see if it's a technical difficulty by asking,
Cargo, can you hear me?
and yet what continues to be sent are messages from the past.
We don't have the best tools right now, so we should go mine.
This goes on with Cargo up until the very last detail,
Dude?
where they find themselves running up the storage room stairs, out of the double doors and towards the mine. But whilst this video plays out, something new and odd is in this video clip. If you haven't noticed it already, I'll play it again for you. Do you see it? There in a distance between the 2 trees is a dark figure. It clearly wasn't there when Sandy and Cargo walked past earlier, and with the video quality being so poor, it's hard to really make out what it is. But we'll get back to this later, as the video cuts again back to Sandy and Cargo running down the mine.
Alright, let's just get to Y11 and then we can strip mine.
Okay?
As they make their way down the mine yet again, it's clear by the way Sandy types, he's growing confused and really starting to freak out.
This isn't funny, Cargo. You can stop now.
But he doesn't, and in a moment of clarity that can be seen, the video cuts again. This wasn't a bug report, and just when I thought this video was about to end, it continues to play through the eyes of the dark figure.
Cargo, can you
We
hear me?
don't have the best tools right now, so we should go mine.
What was this thing? Did it have something to do with the
Let
loop?
me store the wood.
Before I could even think further, the video ended on Sandy's house. This was definitely some sort of loop. I didn't know why yet, but I knew I had to get to the bottom of this, and the only way I knew how was to keep watching the videos. The video started like the first, the same loop, the same conversation, the same forest. Sandy realizing all of it, freaking out and running the opposite direction.
No.
Meanwhile, Cargo continues to repeat the same messages like some sort of NPC.
Lol, yeah, that was pretty funny.
But as Sandy pushes through the trees, the same dark figure from the previous video can be spotted. Yet Sandy doesn't notice, instead reaching the end of the forest and facing the end of the world. The end of the world? What could this mean? Was Sandy in some sort of enclosure? Maybe some sort of simulation? Between all of my questions, something unexpected happened. As Sandy approaches closer and closer to the edge of the world, he turns back towards the house, almost like he's changed his mind, asking the same questions as me. What was this world, and was any of it even real? All whilst Cargo continues repeating his messages.
Alright, let's just get to Y11 and then we can strip mine.
But when Sandy arrives home, Cargo is nowhere to be seen, leaving Sandy to his own device and turning down the mine, where even there, Cargo is nowhere to be seen. And by putting the previous videos side by side, at this point, Sandy is running down stairs that shouldn't even exist.
How am I here? What is this?
Until you can see even through the footage that Sandy is confused. Who made this strip mine? This shouldn't be here. And so he runs and runs until he comes across a much smaller strip mine. The wind starts picking up. It gets darker and darker, and suddenly it seems Sandy's been caught in the loop again, and this time there's no cargo in sight, not even his messages, which makes me think that every time there's a loop it breaks the world bit by bit. And at this point it was becoming noticeable, with the world's in-game music also feeling its effects. But Sandy heads back home, where the same dark figure that's been seen twice before can be spotted yet again, this time with a name tag that I'm unable to read. But none of this really matters right now, because as Sandy reaches the doors to his house, it's clear his friend's bed is missing.
Cargo.
And with this realization, he checks everywhere. The storage room,
Where is my friend?
the path outside, and even eventually finding himself at the very bottom of the strip mine.
What did they do to you?
Now hold on, what did he mean by they? Did Sandy know something that I didn't? This would have to go unanswered, because as I kept watching, dark splotches on the walls, floors, and ceiling started to appear, slowly growing larger and larger as Sandy walked further and further, with the music only getting weirder and weirder when suddenly,
I haven't talked to him in days.
blue text started appearing on screen.
He hasn't played Minecraft with me for so long.
Cargo.
Okay, that's odd. Who's talking here?
I hope everything is alright.
Is that meant to be Cargo?
Where is he?
Is Cargo also looking for Sandy?
Where is he?
The video ends on Sandy's house yet again, although this time the doors are left wide open, and by putting the previous image side by side, it was as if these images were clues to something I had no idea about. And so when I got to the next video titled Limbo, I could tell instantly that something was about to be different, because compared to the previous descriptions,
More footage of me finding weird things in my world. I don't think that's my friend. Sandy Carts 8.
Sandy was no longer signing off.
Signals. Something is not right. He reached sentience. This is not supposed to happen. This is not supposed to happen. What will I tell him?
Cargo.
The video starts like the two before, with the lonely Sandy wandering back through the trees to his house. There's no sign or message from Cargo at all, but whilst heading up the pathway towards his house, Sandy continues to type.
I really have to explore this world. I want to find out what's happening.
And so he does, stepping through his door, pausing and noticing a painting on the wall that wasn't there last time. Strange. He pushes on, heading downstairs, only to quickly come back up and see that the painting has been swapped from an angel to what looked like flowers. What is going on here? Sandy, still curious, heads on out.
Maybe this way.
It's uncertain what Sandy's trying to achieve here, but as he climbs up the hill, he finds himself walking through a plains forest, and very quickly reaching the end of the world once again. But this time, he approaches carefully, passing through the flowers until the unexpected happens. He catches onto a block and he follows, taking one step after the other, making time to look back. At first, it leads nowhere, and then what looks like a door renders in the distance. And in the midst of his confusion, he starts typing frantically.
What the heck? What? How is this here?
This felt like the Truman Show, where Jim Carrey finally realizes the world he's been living in isn't what he thought it was. But this time, it's Sandy.
What is this?
I had no idea where this was going, but Sandy gets closer, almost as if he's building his confidence to open the door.
Well, guess. I don't have an option.
And after a moment of pure hesitation for what lies next, he walks. Now, before we find out where this door truly leads Sandy, if you're enjoying this video, please subscribe, as I'm trying to reach my goal of 800,855 subscribers by the end of the year. You know, for no reason in particular. Now let's find out where Sandy's gone. The clip cuts in again, with Sandy finding himself in a place that I can't quite explain. He walks for a short moment gathering his bearings, before typing in the chat,
What?
and being met with an unauthorized access message. Sandy really wasn't supposed to be here, but still confused about where the door had taken him, he wanders around, before falling on a door with a sign above reading Experiment 67801-236. And so with the door wide open, Sandy invites himself in, noticing some sort of portal with animated blocks moving in an unsettling manner. But this doesn't scare Sandy, and so he jumps. Now, this is where things truly get trippy, so watch close. Sandy finds himself back in the very world he was playing in. Wait, what? And the players down below look awfully familiar.
Well, what do we do now? What?
And suddenly, Sandy realizes he's watching himself, having the same discussion in the same place, doing the exact same thing.
How is there another one of me?
This was an enclosure, an experimental area, and Sandy was standing in the observation room. With no matter how hard he tries, his messages stay restricted. After a short while of Cargo watching himself, and still in the midst of his confusion, he turns around and hits the button. With everything I'd seen up until this point, it seemed like an experiment that had gone wrong. The world had started, Cargo stayed on the simulation, the dark figure was there to supervise, and Sandy had gained sentience, with whoever was experimenting removing Cargo so maybe he too wouldn't gain the same awareness as Sandy. But I was ready to be proven wrong, because after all, I had no idea where these videos were about to take me. And so back in the experimental hallway, Sandy continues exploring, eventually finding another door that piques his curiosity enough that he jumps back through the portal, finding himself in yet another version of his world. Only this time, his copy and Cargo are discussing building a castle.
Hey, I have an idea. Should we build a castle?
Sandy is caught completely off guard. This isn't the same loop anymore, but yet the same world. And the castle they're planning to build, he remembers building.
I remember building a castle.
This was another piece of Sandy's memory being experimented on. And as he watches a copy of himself and his long-lost friend venturing out, the same dark figure that's been hiding in the last two videos can be seen in full clarity. And this time, the username is visible, Voyeur. Could that potentially be the supervisor of these experiments? I'd have to keep watching to find out. As Sandy arrives back at the experiment hall, he questions things out loud.
What are all of these worlds?
Continuing to walk down the experimental hallways and quickly finding another door. At this point, the video started to feel repetitive, but with each portal Sandy had hopped through, clues to what was really happening here was unfolding, and something was about to change. Sandy lands in a world unlike any of the others, where the sky is entirely corrupted, showing up in patches of odd-looking shapes and colours. Almost as if this world too was collapsing in real time, and so he begins to look around more, noticing two players he's never seen before, and then, somehow,
Huh? Who in the heck is that guy?
they notice him too. Despite Sandy being muted, he still attempts to chat,
He's just flying above our house.
What?
but as these new test subjects get no reply, they move on,
Whatever, let's just get out of here.
leaving Sandy watching silently until a weird glitch sound can be heard, and Sandy freaks out, quickly finding himself at again another door. But this one is different. Along with its line of numbers, it's also labelled
Unstable?
Could this be his original world? Sandy pushes right through. The very second Sandy arrives, it's clear something's wrong. The world was much smaller, paired with an eerie yet loud silence. And Sandy, quickly realizing he'd made a mistake, he turns around to the return button. But it no longer works. Sandy starts to panic. And then, the video suddenly ends with another image, this time showing the pathway to Sandy's house, but with no house. And by putting the other two previous images alongside it, I really hoped it would give off a clue, and yet none of it made any sense at all, leading me to the voice at the end of the video. Which by going back and slowing it down, we can see that it's someone by the name of Exec04. Was this another experiment supervisor, or maybe perhaps even a worker? I had no idea, but this next video, titled Meeting, definitely did.
He somehow found his way out of his world. I have to talk to him.
The video starts with Sandy back in his world, and knowing what he knows now, he's determined to get back to the experimental hall. He runs the same path to where the hidden door once was, only this time, it's no longer there.
Where is it?
And yet he keeps running, until the screen goes completely dark, only for the video to cut in again to walking in the alternative world. And this time, he's not alone.
Did you get any good book?
Nope, only efficiency 3.
Sandy keeps walking until he reaches the house he supposedly built with Cargo.
Hello?
However, there's two entirely different players living inside, and for the first time in a while,
Who are you?
Sandy is able to communicate, almost as if he'd managed to break some sort of barrier or something had granted him access.
Don't you remember me? I was here not too long ago.
No.
The conversation is led by confusion. Despite Sandy knowing he's met this friendship duo before, they don't seem to remember him at all.
Do you already know us somehow?
Nevertheless, they're welcoming, allowing him to grab any extra resources he needs for his exploration, because to them, this isn't a simulation, this isn't a loop, but simply playing Minecraft on a server. So in no time, Sandy's left alone in the storage room, where he starts searching through chests one by one, eventually coming across a plant chest, and the very second he goes to open it, the screen goes entirely black. It's as if something has just been triggered. Completely freaked out, Sandy runs back up the stairs. An unsettling feeling sets in as the world around him has gone silent. And then, out of nowhere,
Sandy.
Who's this?
Sandy, you have to stop. That doesn't matter. I got the signals from you. You are pushing the limits.
How did I even get here?
Listen, stop talking for a second.
Where's my friend? Cargo.
I think it's better off if I just mute you. You are not listening to me.
Sandy suddenly loses his ability to chat, and somehow it feels like any chance of an answer or even progress is stopped, with Exec03 telling Sandy he's crazy for acting out.
Why are you out of everyone acting like this? Your friend is not coming back, Sandy. He never even played with you. Now, if you excuse me.
And then Exec03 warps to Limbo, or what I've been calling the Experiment Hall. And this is where the video does something I never would have guessed. It goes dark and cuts back in the perspective of Exec03, showing what full access in Limbo truly looks like, with a completely different hotbar and what was also previously spotted on the voyeur's head. Regardless, Exec03 walks through the hallways, finding the unstable experiment and jumping right through.
Are you sure this is safe?
When landing in the unstable world, it's unclear who Exec03 is talking to at first, but after quickly teleporting down, Exec07 reveals himself.
I mean, just in case, you should lock the world. I just don't want this to reach Sandy.
Exec07 is cautious, suggesting and asking Exec03 to lock down the world.
Spectator seems to be working fine. How do I lock it again?
Just do X-Block ID 1296512511919.
And if they wanted back into this world, they could do so by using their own commands or a terminal.
To come back here, you can go through the limbo or run XPTP exec03 ID 1296512511919.
All right. If I need to check anything about the world, I can just use the terminal, right?
Yeah.
Exec03 goes on with locking the unstable world, whilst Exec07 mentions something crazy about Sandy.
His memories got wiped before we brought him to this world. That's very weird. Like I said, close the world just in case.
And before I knew it, I was staring at the unstable house with two things on my mind. The first being the spectator, which I can only guess is there to watch when the experiments go wrong, or in this case, rogue, which left me wondering about the terminal they mentioned, meaning somewhere out there was probably a major control point, possibly where the spectator feeds were streamed to and stored, but why they were running experiments in the first place would remain a mystery. The next video was titled Envoyer, French for sender, with a description containing what looked like some sort of code. But more on that later, because where this video started, I can only describe as the very bottom of the world. Ground Zero, with an exec walking to what looks like some sort of odd looking room, and as he approaches, he finds himself in front of chests, each one labelled with a number, storing what seems to be archives. He opens a specific chest and retrieves the numbered pages, only to walk further up prismarine looking stairs, revealing a deep dark hallway with plenty of rooms. And as he carries on walking, a new executive can be seen before our exec turns around to his terminal, beginning a conversation with someone completely unknown.
He's been lurking again. He was spotted in 1296512511919. He found out about the real house. He knows too much now.
Exec09 goes on to explain the entire situation we've seen unfold, pausing from time to time, almost as if the sound effects and music in the background was mimicking some sort of speech pattern.
We did, but he somehow got in. We aren't completely sure how to stop him. You might have to intervene.
Whoever's on the other side doesn't seem too keen to help.
Can't you just look at what's going on? Hello?
It seems whoever's on the other side of this conversation is potentially behind these experiments, and based off Exec's responses, he or she was disappointed. At this point, Sandy's awareness is a real problem to the execs, and the unstable world that was locked down, being where Sandy originally came from, only confirms how bad this was about to get, leading me to the next video. The video starts with Sandy opening his message box and typing the same command Exec03 was told to use if he ever wanted to return back to the unstable world. And as Sandy hits enter, he finds himself at the very bottom of the unstable strip mine. How did Sandy figure this one out? As he reaches the top, the spectator can be seen, meaning so can Sandy. and as he quickly looks up to see the return to limbo button, he keeps walking towards the house, where no bed, no crafting table, and no painting exists. He proceeds down the stairs to what was once his storage room, but this time there's a door, and he walks without hesitation, pushing on and exploring what seems to be some sort of clinical bunker.
What the actual heck?
Going room after room until he lands on what looks like a bedroom with a red chest. He hops onto a block to open it, revealing a label reading stored vessel information, discovering 4 books inside, each one labeled with a month, all written by someone named Matthew David. Could this be another group of experiments? Sandy starts reading, realizing quickly that these books were diary entries. In the first book, Matthew writes how he misses playing Minecraft.
I miss playing multiplayer.
He's finished exams and invited friends to play, with one name in particular that is brought up often being Andrew.
Andrew is about as passionate about Minecraft as I am.
And so as Sandy gets to the end of book 1, he realizes,
What the actual heck? This is way too familiar.
in the second book, nothing is particularly weird. Matthew seems to have gotten sick, but it's not getting in the way of him playing Minecraft. He goes on to explain how he saw a weird creature in-game.
I did see a weird creature in my game today.
The diaries then introduce another friend, named Thomas,
We got our friend Thomas to join the server.
and the 3 of them decide to build a castle, with plans to one day put a secret base beneath it. This sounded awfully familiar to the experimental world Sandy had walked in on and claimed to remember, where a copy of himself was planning to also build a castle. Regardless, I kept watching as Sandy flicked through the pages, as mysteriously the entire friend group starts getting sick.
They also started to become a bit sick.
Although Matthew, Andrew, and Thomas keep playing, with Matthew seeing the odd creature again, this time describing it in his diary as having a white 3 on his head.
He seemed to have a white O3 on his head.
Sounds familiar. Matthew also writes that this flu or disease or whatever this was only infecting teenagers.
Apparently a lot of teenagers across the world are somehow catching this disease.
Matthew believes whatever this mysterious sickness is, it's spreading through the game, that he feels like he's going to die,
I could be dead tomorrow.
and that he's spiraling into pure insanity, with the last page on the last book ending with the diary entry,
I am part of it. I am part of it now. I belong to it now. And it was decided like that from the beginning.
Sandy freaks out, putting the books away quickly, only to turn around and...
Hey, man.
Cargo? How are you here?
I was looking for you. I don't think we should be here.
You're acting weird, dude. What is happening?
The music intensifies as Sandy's realization kicks in.
Can we please go back?
Something's wrong,
No, you are Cargo.
and as Sandy rushes out,
Sandy.
Cargo, or whatever this thing is, continues to antagonize Sandy.
Leave me alone.
But the music only gets louder, overwhelming Sandy as the seconds go by.
Sandy, come back.
And as Sandy heads out of the door, rushing towards the creepy strip mine,
We can talk about this.
No.
Cargo keeps going.
You will regret this moment. You will always be the mistake known for ruining everything.
What in the world did I just watch? The story was all coming together, the memories, the disease, these 3 characters, the familiarity. Could Sandy maybe be Matthew? I quickly grabbed video 7, the receptor, and hit play. The video starts from a perspective I'd never seen before, but as they reached the terminal and began typing, it quickly became clear who I was watching.
Proceed.
This was someone called Architect.
Unbelievable.
And from his one-way conversation, when putting Execo and 9 side by side, there was a good chance it was who he was talking to.
Honestly, I'm disappointed in all of you. All you had to do was lock the world, but you didn't. Listen, you have 63 co-workers. You're the ones who have to figure this out. You're on your own.
This video had a completely different tone to the others, and despite ending so soon, we learned there are 63 execs that work on this experiment. Why 63? I had no idea, but what made this video truly interesting was the description, with the first line when googled showing results of a muscle weakness, leading to loss of movement similar to how Matthew described in his diaries. But this is where it gets deeper, as I remembered the Envoyer's video description containing numbers, and by lining up the random letters alongside it, and picking out the specific letter depending on the number, it left me with a message: body lacking a soul. Could this mean that Cargo never actually existed? Or perhaps he's a shell of what was once Sandy's friend? Either way, I had no clue, meaning now more than ever, it was time for the next video. The video starts with a new exec talking to Execo 9.
You're going to work on the bugs today?
Yep, Ark said he wanted us all to work on it. That Sandy guy.
After his quick conversation with Exec 22, he opens up the terminal, putting in some form of password, heading over to the player's module before picking out Sandy, along with the other friendly duo who had managed to communicate with him, labeled as Thinking Mind. Exec-09 reports them to the architect and turns off the unstable world completely, double checking by trying to teleport there with his command completely failing.
Well, that works now. So, either the permissions were all messed up or...
Exec-09 is suddenly interrupted by a new exec.
I was just walking by, don't mind. By the way, did you turn all access to the real house world off? I can't enter it.
Yeah, I did. I'm trying to fix Sandy entering worlds he's not supposed to.
Exec-13 wanders off, leaving Exec-09 alone with the terminal, where he selects global cameras and for the first time ever, he watches through the perspective of the spectator. Watching a serene mist, another test subject observes the spectator closely, standing quietly, staring deep into the camera. He watches for a short moment before backing out.
That surely was something.
At this point, I'd lost count of how many different execs I'd seen, but yet again another exec pops up, and this time it's a confused Exec-05.
Kinda lost right now. What are we supposed to do?
Arch didn't tell you? We are investigating the stuff going on with Sandy.
Wait, Sandy?
Yeah, Sandy.
It's suspicious how nervous Exec-05 seems to be for what felt like a simple interaction.
What a weirdo.
Regardless, 09 returns to his terminal, hovering over buttons almost as if he was about to put something online. But he backs out again, only to see a nervous Exec-05 appear again.
I gotta go.
What?
Exec-09, confused by 05, follows behind, watching as he runs off into the distance, teleporting to the unstable world. And when getting back to his terminal, it's here Exec-09 realizes that the unstable world was no longer offline.
What?
05 had to have turned it back on, and with the realization, 09 teleports to the unstable world, running up the strip mine stairs and heading down deep into the underground bunker. The unstable world is clearly more unstable than when Sandy was in it, corrupting in real time with what was once an all-white clinical house now filled with patches of red, with some rooms turning entirely white and others left completely in darkness. But as he makes his way around this weird bunker, Exec-09 eventually finds 05.
What is wrong with you, dude?
Sitting in the same room Sandy had originally found the diaries, this time quickly burning them before rushing out of the room. Exec-09 chases 05 up the stairs right through the weird corrupted bunker, with 05 warping to an unrecognized map, leaving Exec-09 stumped. Unrecognized map? Where did he go? The video then cuts, following 05 to the unrecognizable world. And then, the video abruptly ends. Now, before I moved on to the next video, I checked out the description, where I found what seemed to be the architect or an exec talking to someone much higher up, covering all the events we'd already seen in full detail, with the only thing catching me off guard being the last paragraph.
Sandy is definitely the first one. I am aware of what he's doing, and I'm letting him have his fun.
As I scrolled further down, I found 4 codes, with the question above being where is cargo. Now, these random strings of text were easy to figure out, as with the equals at the end of each sentence, it was clear it was base 64, and by putting it quickly through a decoder, I got back the creepy message.
He's gone forever, never to be seen again. Nothing more than a memory.
If what they were saying about cargo was true, Sandy was doing all of this for practically nothing. Surely there was a way to find and get cargo back. There was only one way to find out, by moving on to the next video titled Disposal, with a YouTube description simply containing a tree emoji. Are they about to get rid of Sandy? I hit play. The very minute the video began to play, the description was no longer a mystery, with the video opening with Sandy falling into what appears to be lava, and as he accepts his fate, he looks away for a moment, only to land on a tree. The video is eerie, with no hotbar. It's hard to tell where Sandy is or whether he's already been disposed of. Nevertheless, Sandy walks around, exploring what feels to be some form of prison or escape room, finding levers on the wall and a small painting seen in an experimental world before. This place really doesn't make sense to Sandy, and yet he keeps exploring, until he comes across a room taking the shape of his house, with stairs down the middle and a painting of his house above, acting as a reference to this disturbing replica. And so after taking a short moment to investigate and being freaked out by it, Sandy keeps exploring, finding another painting looking exactly like where his house was supposed to be, but missing, similar to the image I had previously seen from an earlier video's ending. With this in mind, I kept watching as Sandy pushed on, as he walked into another room with chests and furnaces oddly placed out of reach, with signs that I could not read and an extremely windy staircase. Sandy looks down and notices a weird downward staircase, leading nowhere, along with redstone lamps stuck up against the wall. But Sandy is far more interested in the stairs leading upwards, and so as he starts to climb, he notices a short hallway in the wall, pausing to look, debating to walk through, before continuing his climb right back up the stairs. It doesn't take long for Sandy to reach the top, quickly realizing he had no other choice but to walk through the odd-shaped hallway. It's here the footage becomes awfully dark, as Sandy explores until he magically comes across a jukebox, where one moment it's playing music, and the next, it's completely vanished, magically opening another pathway for Sandy to walk down. But where this pathway took him was right back to the tree he'd started at. What was going on here? I had no idea, but before I knew it, Sandy had run back to the levers, almost as if he'd figured something out, flicking a lever and making his way back to the unusual staircase, this time following through to the weird short hallway, eventually finding himself face to face with the void. For a moment it seems like Sandy takes a moment of peace, staring into the large opening with the sunset in the distance, only for the video to end. Now, I don't quite know how to explain any of this. Sandy hadn't said a word, and this entire video was up for my interpretation. Maybe this was an escape room, maybe this was a prison, maybe this was where Sandy was stuck. I had no idea. But this next video titled Reunion sounded far more optimistic. Maybe Cargo and Sandy would find their way back. I hit play, with the video picking up exactly where it had left me, with Sandy now facing what was once the sun, now being the moon, taking a left turn, going through another small maze before finding an emergency switch. What? Watching this, I was confused, and by listening carefully to the video, I could hear footsteps in the background, before Sandy quickly flicked the lever. Sandy finds himself in a familiar white room, the same unrecognized world that 05 had previously warped to, and as Sandy approaches what seems like a table, Exec 05 renders in.
Hello?
I see you found the emergency switch. I have a lot to tell you, Andrew.
Who are you?
I need you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. You have no idea how long you've been stuck in this form. Have a seat.
Sandy takes a seat, with Exec telling Sandy,
You might have noticed that you're not actually here, playing Minecraft.
What did he mean by this? Sandy being confused, Exec 05 continues to explain himself.
Andrew, do you remember me? Thomas, your friend.
Exec 05 goes on to explain Thomas from the diary entries is him, Exec 05.
We were going to build a castle, us two and Matthew.
Oh my god.
And so if Exec 05 was Thomas and Cargo was Matthew, it only meant that Sandy was Andrew. Meaning on top of this, the diaries that we had read were written by Cargo. And so Sandy, completely in shock, interrupts Exec 05 to ask a question.
If you're really Thomas, why are you an exec?
Despite the straightforward question, Exec 05 insists on telling him the full story.
Hold on, I have to explain the full story. It won't make sense otherwise.
You see, a few years ago, a sickness appeared. Something that no one had ever seen before.
And to cut things short, you got the sickness. Matthew did too.
When the two friends became sick, Exec 05, also known as Thomas, was hired by the execs to manage what they call the Concept, another name for the loops that Sandy had been visiting and existing in all this time. He goes on to explain the concept in greater detail, referring to those within these experiments such as Sandy as vessels.
Vessels like you are sent to these worlds. These vessels are the people affected by the sickness. They're forced to play the same few minutes, over and over again.
And then Exec 05 drops something I never thought I'd hear from him.
We aren't just execs working on this though. There are people in control of us. My boss is named Architect. He's one of the people who made your world.
Does this mean that he too is trapped within this experiment? I kept watching, as Exec 05 went into more detail about vessels.
Vessels aren't actually people that you see. Players walking around the map. They're the sort of ghost that controls these lifeless bodies. I know you're eager to know about Matthew. He is one of the vessels. But what you haven't noticed yet is that there are camera. They watch you to make sure that nothing goes wrong. When you first broke the loop, a camera we call Voyeur was installed in your world.
Everything was starting to make sense, as when remembering the very first time the video looped, I'd seen the dark figure between the trees, yet Sandy didn't even seem to notice.
Whenever you perform a loop properly, cameras are taken from the world. When you do something wrong, they send signals to us.
Everything was adding up. This explained exactly why the execs kept appearing, and then Exec 05 offered Sandy a plan.
If you want Matthew back, you need to go back to your loop. You need to get Voyeur on your world. I will enable Matthew to possess Voyeur. Voyeur will be out of order and replaced with Matthew's vessel. From there on out, it's on you. You know how to get out. Take your time to think about how you'll do this. Once you come up with something, let me know and I'll take you to your world. I'll be at the office. Good luck.
Exec 05 would continue as normal, returning to the terminal headquarters to avoid any suspicion, leaving Sandy with a button allowing him to, well, at any point, teleport back to his world. And so with enough time passed, Sandy, previously known as Andrew, hits the button, with the screen going again, completely dark. With the screen coming back in to Sandy walking back in his world, where things seem to be completely normal. The beds are back, the storage room is back, but still no sign of cargo. However, once Sandy's finished up doing his rounds, he leaves the house spotting the voyeur, where he climbs the hill, approaching him carefully, calling out for cargo.
Matthew, it's me.
Sandy goes on to ask Cargo if he still remembers him.
Andrew, do you remember me?
And after a short moment,
Andrew?
Aha! Part of his friend was back, and in the process of showing him around, Sandy explains everything.
We need to get out of here.
And with Cargo gaining some form of understanding, Sandy leads Cargo to Limbo, and the final video ends right here. Leaving me with the question, did Cargo and Sandy manage to escape? I guess I'll never know. Or will I? Because 3 weeks pass by and suddenly 5 new videos gradually appeared, dragging me further down this rabbit hole and finding me right back in front of a video titled A Message to You. A message to me? This almost felt like whoever was uploading had seen my videos, with even the description reading,
"Keep watching."
And so just like with every other video on this mysterious channel, I hit play, with the video opening on a black screen. Okay, that's odd. At first I really thought I hadn't hit play, but then...
Hello. This is Architect speaking.
It seems as if Architect is on some form of phone. Does he already know that Sandy and Cargo are trying to escape? He keeps talking.
I'm sure you know who I am, viewer.
Oh no.
I seriously discourage you from further watching the content on this YouTube channel. Everything you have seen so far is a mere act of fiction.
Wait, how does he know videos are being uploaded? What?
I don't know who is in charge of uploading all of these videos, but I am unable to remove the content from it. This is not what the concept is about. These videos are fabricated, and their only intention is to make you believe them, to make it look like I'm the bad person here. Keep that in mind if you do want to continue watching. Do not believe anything posted here. Farewell.
The video then ends there. Clearly, Architect was trying to throw off anyone who was watching. And if I'm being honest, when watching this, I was shocked. What in the world had I found, and what was I getting myself into? Despite the video being entirely dark with only chat appearing in intervals, it was clear that Architect was far more aware than Sandy. But there was a lot more to break down here, as Architect clearly mentioned how he didn't know who was uploading these videos, meaning that even him, with his authority over the execs, couldn't remove these YouTube videos, but yet was able to upload one. This was extremely confusing, and the only thing I knew how to do was to move on to the next video, titled We Need Help, with a description almost seeming to complete the title with the words, or will they? It felt to me as if whoever was behind these YouTube video uploads was clearly starting to crawl out their shell, their own universe, leaking over and telling us to look at the bigger picture, as when even putting the previous title together, it resulted in an even more interesting sentence.
"A message to you. Keep watching. We need help, or will they?"
Maybe I was looking far too deep into this, but honestly, there was only one way to find out. The video opens back up in Limbo, with a familiar name but not so familiar face, as for the first time ever, we see Sandy from a different perspective, standing by a possessed voyeur with Cargo in what seems to be complete control.
So, this is the Limbo.
Limbo?
Yeah.
Cargo continues to pace around, attempting to take everything in, because for Cargo, all he ever knew up until this point was the loop, and so Sandy continues to explain.
The execs use this place to get to other worlds, I think.
But can't they just use teleport?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what they're doing. Come on.
Sandy leads a confused Cargo down a Limbo hallway, coming across door 0008389, a portal room that had previously taken Sandy into a completely different world with 2 entirely different players. After being stuck in a loop for so long, it's understandable why Cargo seems hesitant, because everything is new.
You jump in there first, I'll go after.
And after a short moment, with Cargo trusting Sandy, he jumps, landing back in the unusual world where the sky is entirely corrupted.
So what is this place?
My friends are here, just wait a moment. They'll appear just like us. Also teleport down so we don't have to stay up here.
It made sense that Cargo would be able to use such a command, as with possessing Voyeur, it opened up the doors to exec power. Although how Sandy knew of it, let alone became able to do it, I was unsure. But regardless, I kept watching, as the duo waited patiently in front of the odd-colored house.
Just give it a bit.
It's like our house.
Oh, there she is.
Serene Mist is surprised at the appearance of Sandy and Cargo.
Oh hey,
Hello.
with Sandy skipping the greetings and cutting straight to his question.
Is Zyphoid here?
I don't actually know where he went.
It's clear in even such a dire situation of escape, Sandy does indeed have jokes.
So he pulled a cargo?
Not cool.
But then the chat drops silent, and Serene Mist almost appears to zone out.
But I seriously don't know where Zyphoid is.
At this point, Cargo lets his curiosity win in the midst of conversation, opening the doors to the house and taking a look around. Maybe I'd simply missed this beforehand, but I noticed the stairs were on either sides of the walls, compared to Cargo and Sandy's house that featured the stairs dead center. Did this mean that this world was in fact an inverted or complete opposite to Cargo and Sandy's? Cargo heads towards the stairs.
Also, how are you here?
He stops for a short moment in such a way, almost as if he sensed a new figure outside the window, and to my amazement, there was someone named Sightseer. Cargo stares for a little, before descending further down the stairs, finding himself in the chest room.
Andrew got me back, but we can't really do anything without your help.
Wait, hold on, is Cargo talking to me, or is he talking to himself? This chat message didn't seem to faze or disturb or even appear for Sandy.
You know the execs, right?
In the meantime, Cargo continues wandering around the weird chest room, where it's obvious familiarity and fear are now meeting.
Yeah, I totally know a lot about them. Girl, be serious. Do you know or not?
While Sandy and Serene Mist continue their conversation, Cargo returns back up the stairs and towards the double doors.
No, I don't have a clue.
It's unclear why Sandy has taken Cargo into this world in the first place, and now even more confusingly, what he was trying to achieve by talking to Serene Mist. Although with the conversation at a standstill, Cargo returns back down to the storage room, this time heading right back for the chest named Blocks for Building, quickly grabbing cobblestone, heading towards the stairs and opening his chat box.
The execs are like these corporate guys who love to control us.
Between Cargo's typing that had yet to be noticed and what I believe to be him talking to himself or directly towards me, Cargo heads out of the door, dropping cobblestone in front of Sandy while he continues to explain.
He hired people called Exec, like Exec 03. Me and Matthew got here through the limbo, which is like a connection between worlds.
At this point, Cargo seemed extremely restless, and with Sightseer still standing in the background, Cargo turns to the hills, almost as if he's debating leaving Sandy behind to investigate. All whilst the confused Serene Mist replies to Sandy's tangent.
I'm so lost, but I'll join you guys, I guess.
Okay, we have to go to the limbo then. Matthew got us some blocks.
Running completely out of patience, Cargo starts building upwards.
What the hell is this for?
Sandy follows Cargo's lead, building upwards and explaining how the invisible platform exists.
There's an invisible platform up there. Just tower up and get onto it. Then, you press the button up there.
And just as Sandy has explained, Cargo hits the button, ending the video right there, and leaving me with all sorts of questions. Like, where had Zyphoid gone to? Had he been taken away in an effort to avoid him gaining awareness too, in the same way Cargo and Sandy had been separated? This was a possibility, as back in part 1, Exec09 had already noticed on his terminal that this other duo had become thinking minds. With Serene Mist appearing to have broken the loop, none of this was a long shot. But why, when, and how would Sandy ever need her for his escape? Hopefully this next video titled Lifeless would answer my wonders. The video opens up with the trio in limbo, where Cargo looks around before Sandy.
Oh, what the heck?
What the hell?
Huh?
Like Cargo, I was confused. What were they reacting to?
What?
Your name.
Cargo, your name and skin has changed.
That's... wow.
Despite both Sandy and Serene Mist saying this, I had yet to see what Cargo now looked like. But what was instantly noticeable was his name had now returned to Cargo after being Voyeur in the previous video.
That looks kinda badass.
Yeah, I am badass.
Sandy looks at him in silence, and possibly even disappointment, because if there was any way to signify parts of Cargo's consciousness returning or that the small part of Cargo was growing, the jokes and confidence were definitely a teller. And then for the first time, Serene Mist reveals what Cargo looks like.
Your skin is like half you and half Voyeur.
Confirming what I had guessed to be somewhat true, that Cargo was slowly reclaiming his body. With this in mind, I continued to watch, as the trio headed down the limbo hallway with Cargo asking,
"Now what?"
Before Sandy with a plan replies,
"Alright, come on guys, let's go to the unstable world."
Cargo looks up at the experiment sign, almost as if he was making a mental note of the numbers, before quickly following behind Sandy.
"I have something to show you. I think it's over here."
Cargo continues looking at each door, observing every experiment sign as they walk down the endless purple-toned hallways, patiently following Sandy as he walks them to the correct door. Once arriving, Cargo stares at the unstable world's experimental number, and it's here that I realized something I had completely missed out on. See, after playing around with the numbers on the board and taking time separating them, I found when putting them through a letter number decoder, it gave me the word lifeless. I wondered if this meant that the unstable world was unable to contain life, and that this was the reason Sandy and Cargo were moved to a different world. I kept watching.
Yep, go in.
And as Cargo quickly approached the portal, he jumps, finding himself at the very bottom of the original mine.
Hurry up.
I'm coming.
As Cargo rushes his way up and surfaces from the mine, it's clear the unstable world was much more unstable than before, still appearing to corrupt in real time, with Cargo seeming to be in total shock, taking a moment to, well, take everything in.
Finally.
As they walk up towards the unstable and corrupted house, Cargo recognizes the spectator at a distance, placed in an entirely different spot. As the trio gets closer to the house, they realize the doors are missing.
Whoa, what the heck?
Oh.
What's up with this place?
With Sandy preoccupied with the house, Serene Mist points the spectator out to Sandy.
There's a camera here, Sandy.
The three friends get a closer look, approaching carefully yet suddenly.
Oh what? Spectator. Interesting.
You think that means something?
Probably, but it doesn't matter right now.
Sandy clearly doesn't care, heading back into the house with both Cargo and Serene Mist following.
Look at the house though, what the heck?
And as Cargo enters the house, we get a better look at how truly unstable this world was becoming, with the house missing blocks and becoming entirely patchy.
Is it not meant to be like that?
As they walk down the stairs, Sandy replies back.
No, it was like perfectly fine before.
It was evident the house was really deteriorating, so much so that even for me, this was looking awfully different. And by comparing it to the other times we had found ourselves in the unstable world, it was dead obvious. And yet Sandy continued to walk, which at this point I realized he was leading his two friends towards the books. The very same books we had read in part 1, explaining the entire backstory of how they landed in this simulation in the first place. But how unstable this world really was about to get worse. As Sandy reaches another set of stairs that looked so unstable and corrupted that they were unrecognizable. But yet Sandy takes a right, going down a smaller path and walking into the room where he had originally found the books. However, this time he arrived at nothing, leaving Sandy completely lost.
What?
Serene Mist and Cargo are out of the loop, with Cargo asking,
What are you looking for, exactly?
The group stands in a moment of silence, before Sandy replies,
Your diaries, Matthew, they were right here in a chest, but they're gone.
Sandy, now clearly mad, leaves the room.
Whatever, let's get out of here.
As they head back up the stairs, it's clear for Sandy, confusion and disappointment have just met. Then suddenly,
Hey, friends.
Thomas?
Wait, what?
And the silence is now louder than ever.
What are you doing here?
I'm only here to report on the world's status. I can't be here long. Yeah. I burned the diaries.
Why?
Whatever. You know the limbo, right?
Cargo interrupts.
Yes.
By the way Execo 5 was talking, I could sense that something might have gone wrong up in limbo.
Weren't we just there?
Yes, but you need to go back.
This to me felt like a trap.
There's something for you. If you jump into the void,
Is this like one of your super secret escape routes?
you'll appear in a different place, but it's odd. No, it's simply a backdoor arch added in case you fell
A
down.
backdoor arch? Huh? What? This sounded all sorts of bizarre. Sandy pushes for an answer on his previous question.
Why did you burn the diaries though? I needed those.
Andrew T, that is not important right now.
Execo 5 seems to start losing his patience with Sandy's persistent questioning.
Okay, can we hurry?
Execo 5 continues his explanation.
Once you get back, you'll get to see them yourself.
It wasn't hard to imagine Sandy being so thrown off by such an answer, and honestly, I was even having a hard time judging where this was about to go. Execo 5 then replies to Serene Mist.
You probably should. You were caught on Spectator and Sightseer. The other execs know you're here. In fact, I'll help you guys out just a little.
Suddenly, Cargo's friends start disappearing, and then so does Cargo. Only cutting back in as the trio land back in limbo.
Wait up.
Oh, my bad.
Where Sandy almost seemed surprised that Cargo was teleported with them, but Cargo continues to follow, heading towards the void as Execo 5 had instructed.
So, who is going first?
Walking to the edge, and with a short moment to discuss who was to jump first.
Really?
Cargo is hit off the edge. The sound of water can be heard, and the video ends right here. Now with everything I had seen so far, I started theorizing about what Execo 5 meant by the backdoor arch. Where did this door lead to? Where exactly was it? Had Cargo, Sandy and Serene Mist jumped towards it? Or had they been completely tricked and trapped? It all felt like something that would surely answer itself with time. But how Execo 5 claimed the burnt books were to be seen again felt like an impossible statement. Either way, more now than ever, it felt like this next video had a lot to reveal, with the German title translating to Abyss. with an even weirder German description translating to,
"The frog that thinks, be cheerful, you'll come down soon."
I couldn't help but pick up the strange correlation between the description and what Cargo had done in the previous video's ending, because if the frog is Cargo, happy at a joke Sandy had made, and coming down from the sky and landing in water, tell me if I'm reaching here, all lines up a little too perfectly. The video opens up in pure darkness, okay? Nothing exactly out of the ordinary, but things that I've never seen before are definitely present, with the crosshair looking like some form of star. It's unclear whose perspective I'm watching from, but as they look down from what is supposedly limbo and turn to Serene Mist and Sandy, it wasn't hard to figure out that I was watching from the perspective of Cargo. However, the different crosshair definitely threw me off. But it wasn't the only thing that caught me off guard. If you look carefully, there's something in this clip you've definitely missed. Here, let me brighten the video a little bit. Do you see it? Because I only spotted it by going frame by frame, replaying the opening scene and spotting that out there in the distance can be seen a white figure. I have no idea who it could be, but Sandy, Cargo and Serene Mist group up and get moving, following Sandy almost as if he knows where he's going, wandering through the darkness to some form of dead-end structure, forcing the group to explore further, eventually coming across yet another strange structure with no sign of life. I wondered if Execo 5 had tricked and misled the group, as at the moment it definitely came across that way, until suddenly the video cut to darkness, coming back in again to the perspective of Sandy, carrying the exact same crosshair as Cargo. It's safe to assume down here the crosshair has changed for everyone. Maybe there's something about leaving limbo and distancing away from the simulation that alters their perspective.
We have been walking for so long. This place freaks me out.
Don't worry, we will find it eventually. He wouldn't just send us here to die.
You're right.
Sandy notices another building in the distance.
Let's head into that building.
Suggesting to head over there, and with a slight pause of uncertainty, the others begin to follow Sandy anyway. I decided at this point to fast forward the video a little, to the point where Sandy reaches the weird castle-like structure, and Cargo and Serene Mist have caught up. It's here Sandy finds a mysteriously dark doorway. Could this be the escape that Execo 5 was talking about?
Do I go in?
Sandy was definitely curious, yet cautious, and by asking Serene Mist and Cargo whether he should actually step foot through the doorway, Cargo hopelessly answers back,
"It probably doesn't lead anywhere."
It's worth a shot.
And so with Sandy mustering the courage and walking right in, he faces darkness until he turns around and the unexpected appears. Sitting in the darkness lies his house, perfectly lit up with not a single thing surrounding it. And then Sandy speaks.
Are you serious?
The video ends there, with the place Sandy had just discovered obviously being set up by Exec 05. It made sense why 05 would place it in such a creepy and dark place, although whether this was the way to escape or just a safe house, I was clueless. However, one thing I truly questioned was how safe it really was, because if the weird white figure we had previously seen was potentially following them and dangerous, I wondered how far the group would get in their escape. And so with my speculation and the next video titled Loss of Control, I could only hope it would answer more questions. The video fades in to what seems like the same or similar star-like icon that is featured as a crosshair on both Sandy and Cargo's perspective. The camera unexpectedly swings, revealing what seems to be a room similar to where the architect had previously used his terminal.
The Abyss? No, of course not.
At first, it's hard to figure out of one sentence what exactly these execs were talking about, or if they were even execs at this point, but rather bosses in charge of the simulations and the test subjects inside of them. As with the names Creator, Shaper, and Instigator all featuring unique patterns on their face and the chairs they were sitting on, the camera suddenly cuts to a different angle.
Well, I don't see any other possibilities.
Showing much more than I'd ever expected, because these blue men weren't alone, and this blue-skied arena, office, or headquarters, whatever this was only the half of it, as a red side to this HQ with 3 red bosses named Originator, Inventor, and Author also seemed to be in the midst of discussion, along with a 4th blue boss called Founder and an empty chair on the red side. As the video continues to play, Architect arrives, filling that one empty red chair.
You took your time.
Indeed, I did.
A moment of silence and almost awkwardness passes before Creator speaks.
She wanted us to meet. Anomalies were located in your quadrant, Architect.
I am fully aware of the anomalies present. They're being taken care of.
So much for taking care of your quadrant. It's Sandy, right?
It seemed like the bosses on the red side were a lot more tense, making it hard for me to judge if there was any form of hierarchy between them. Either way, I was intrigued.
Correct.
You don't seem to be as aware as we'd hope.
It was here I realized the opening symbol at the start of the video was Architect's chair symbol, and with the dots connecting, it all started making sense, considering Sandy, Cargo, and Serene Mist were all in Architect's quadrant.
Signals. I received them from the Abyss.
The Abyss, you say?
Precisely. The vessel you call Sandy, along with Cargo and Serenimist. All three were caught by one of our execs, the Outcast.
Could Founder be talking about Execo 5? Or was he talking perhaps about the mysterious white figure? Architect starts talking.
That's besides the point. The Abyss is a barren wasteland. There's nothing they can do.
Instigator for the first time cuts Architect off.
That's where you're wrong. According to recent data, Sandy has been separated from the other two vessels.
Wait, what? Last video they were all together. Did he mean by separation he means the house?
Where did he go?
Grenzen.
And you think that's supposed to help them?
The point is that they're getting closer. What do you think happens when they reach the last layer?
Wait, what? Last layer? Watching this, the questions were just building up, and with Architect having nothing to say, it remains quiet until author decides to speak up.
If you don't send your workers to capture them, then well, I'm sure you can figure that last part out. Don't make us have to interfere is what I'm trying to say.
And then the camera angle changes again, getting a close-up on Architect. Architect, clearly sick of the anger being thrown at him, replies,
"I'll get them."
Only for the screen to go dark yet again. Now, before I continued watching this video, I had a bunch of things from this that I wanted to figure out. Like when creator said,
"She wanted us to meet. Anomalies were located in your quadrant, Architect."
It was safe to assume that whoever she was someone much higher up and more powerful than the bosses, and that it was her who was in fact giving the real orders. But that's not all this sentence gave me, as creator mentioned quadrants, meaning that each of these bosses have their very own simulation experiments that they're in charge of looking over, and that the amount of execs working for them in total could be well into the hundreds. Along with this new information, I found interesting how they mentioned an outcast. I wasn't entirely sure if they were referring to knowing that Execo 5 was working secretly with Sandy, or maybe, just maybe, they were referring to the disturbing white figure in Abgrund. Either way, my speculation didn't end here, because the use of the German word Grenzen, when translated, came out as boundaries. And with the term being used when explaining where the trio had jumped to me, it felt like Sandy, Cargo, and Serene Mist were between the simulation and the real world. Hence why the creator also mentioned the last layer. With all my theories out of the way, I got back to the video, with it bringing me right back to Sandy, standing in the copy of his house in the middle of a completely different dimension. It's not hard to imagine how overwhelmed Sandy must feel, with the same house that he'd seen over and over again in each and every different loop being found in this weird dimension too. Execo 5 clearly had a thing for plain rooms, as when he revealed everything in the last video, the room was completely white with just a table, and here, everything was completely pitch black. After a short moment of looking around and gathering his bearings, Sandy briefly leaves the house, before returning and hesitating, yet still heading down the stairs, finding himself in a much darker storage room compared to anything before, yet chests and furnaces are able to be seen. It's clear that Sandy is wary, inching further and further around the corner, almost as if he senses that something really isn't right here, and after a short moment, he backs out, running back up the stairs like a kid who had just turned off the downstairs light, and as he reaches the top, the darkness outside has completely changed, with what looks like through the window some sort of brick house. What in the world was going on here? Sandy gets closer to the window, revealing a castle, but not any castle, as I realized pretty quickly that this was the castle Sandy, Cargo, and Execo 5 were planning to build within one of his memories. And after a moment of pure shock that Sandy gets over, he opens the door, heading towards the homemade fortress, taking a moment to look back before making his final decision to move to this distant memory. And as he passes the stone brick doorway, he notices bookshelves, an enchanting table, but most importantly, lilacs. Now, after uploading my previous video, I realized that lilacs were truly scattered everywhere. From paintings to where the invisible limbo door existed, lilacs were definitely a major clue or important for something much bigger. Nevertheless, I watched as Sandy kept walking up to the enchanting table, jumping, noticing a stairwell hidden behind a set of bookshelves. Sandy, visibly unsure how to access them, he begins looking around, gathering a feel for his previously built fortress, or seemingly looking for something that I can't quite put a finger on. Maybe a button, maybe the escape route. He keeps walking, eventually realizing that the stairs behind the bookshelves weren't hidden, just built behind. And suddenly, as he reaches the roof of his memory castle, music begins to play.
This place is screwed.
It seems he's trying to talk to Execo 5, yet no one replies.
Get me out of here.
Sandy, very clearly freaked out, rushes back down the stairs, making sure to look behind him and beginning to circle around the entire castle. For what reason? I had no idea, yet it still seemed like he was looking for someone. And then I was proven wrong. Sandy was looking for the escape route, and he'd found it, a small trap door with Sandy opening it without hesitation and climbing down the ladder. A very, very long ladder.
Where is it?
Suddenly, more and more pieces of the ladder start to go missing, and Sandy is shouting more than ever.
Thomas.
The ladder gets patchier. Has Execo 5 or Thomas truly betrayed his friends?
I thought you were helping me.
Sandy calls for his friend yet again.
Thomas.
The screen goes dark. Is Sandy okay? I still didn't know where the ladder led to, and Cargo and Serene Mist, were they still waiting outside? This video had left me on another cliffhanger, rushing me to the next video titled Answers. Was I finally about to get some? The description contained an almost cryptic diary entry, reading,
"Crossing the boundaries of the abyss. I mean, that's what he said, right? Would he really betray you, your best friend?"
The video opens in pure darkness, but after quickly brightening the video ever so slightly, we can see Serene Mist waiting outside of the arch door with Cargo.
We've been waiting for so long. Is this thing infinite?
I don't know, but I wouldn't walk in there if I were you. It's probably been hours since he went in.
I don't think he's coming back.
With the duo admitting that they had been waiting with hours flying past, it was understandable that they weren't so optimistic about Sandy's return. And with this shared mindset, the new duo head for the exit, where almost immediately a white character can again be seen in the distance, only this time featuring a blurry name tag, yet Cargo doesn't notice.
Now that I think about it, where did Xiphoid go?
It's slightly strange how it took this long for Serene Mist to question Xiphoid's whereabouts. Regardless, she keeps talking.
Sandy said something about you disappearing in a similar way.
To be completely honest, it felt like nothing happened while I was gone, kind of as if I didn't even exist during that time span.
That's so weird.
Then Serene Mist is thrown off.
What the hell? Who is that?
The white figure I had noticed in the previous video and a little earlier on was approaching fast.
Hey there!
We should probably get out of here.
You don't have to. I don't work with them.
What do you mean?
Yeah, what did this Exec 111 truly mean? Was this who the bosses were talking about? This newly appeared exec continues talking.
Well, not anymore at least.
It's so hard to take you seriously when you're this bright a figure in this dark place.
Whatever. Listen, I'm assuming you're lost down here, right?
Do you know Thomas, sire?
Wait, hold on. Am I missing something? Why is Cargo calling him sire? This is only getting weirder.
What I mean is you don't need the formalities.
I'll take that as a yes. I've been down here for quite a while. We are currently in Abergrund. Well, Abgrund of the Abyss.
Wait, don't those just mean the same thing? Serene Mist beats me to it.
Don't those mean the same thing?
Correct.
And then Exec 111 gives a piece of knowledge I wouldn't have guessed.
Abgrund, as you can probably tell, imitates the bottom of the ocean.
With Cargo taking a look around, it suddenly adds up. However, Exec 111 continues to go on.
The Abyss is a layered network. It's beneath the entirety of the concept.
This made sense considering we just fell from limbo. Exec 111 then goes on to assume that both Serene Mist and Cargo were tired of dialogue, with Cargo confirming,
"How did you know?"
Let's just say we are quite talkative.
Wait, hold on. What does he mean by we? As in Cargo and Serene Mist, or was the other white character I'd previously seen in the distance been another exec? Exec 111 goes on to ask the duo what their goal is in Abgrund, with Cargo and Serene Mist explaining how Execo 5 had told them to come down here, and that one of their friends, being Sandy, had guided them towards the weird door and simply vanished. Exec 111 replies fairly quickly.
He might have gone into Grenzen.
Almost as if Cargo and Serene Mist were supposed to know what that was.
And that is?
The next layer of this network. It can be accessed in a multitude of ways. However, the path your friend just took is incredibly risky.
Cargo and Serene Mist quickly ask Exec 111 if he knew any other way to find Sandy, only for him to reply that indeed, yes he did. But there was a catch.
I do, however this place is massive. So unless you don't mind walking for a while, you see that flat area?
Yeah.
So it's a long walk, but if you just walk through the flats, you'll eventually end up at the main location.
The main location? I thought this place was entirely deserted. What did this place even look like? I kept watching.
Well, main location. It's just a wasteland, like the rest of Abgrund. You'll know when you get there if you see a bunch of towers scattered around. And yeah, it'll still be flat. We are on the opposite side of the highlands.
Okay, so now I've learned that there are more places than just the concept, the Limbo, the Architect's HQ, the boss's conference room, Abgrund, Grinzen, and now the Highlands. Cargo continues asking important questions as he prepares himself for what seems like his next journey.
Is there anything we should look out for?
With Exec 111 not having much to say apart from,
It's honestly a really calming place, if you just take the time to look around.
Serene Mist cuts off the Exec.
Slight issue, though.
Cargo looks over at Serene Mist.
It's like almost pitch black down here. How are we supposed to see anything?
As Serene Mist continues talking, Cargo looks back at the building, almost as if he was contemplating whether taking the risky road to Sandy would be exactly worth it.
For you, right now, there's nothing we can do. You'll just have to trust your senses.
Serene Mist was clearly dissatisfied with Exec 111's answer, so much so that the Exec wraps up the conversation.
You can leave now. I've explained everything I can.
With Cargo chipping in,
Thank you.
and without looking back to see if Serene Mist was even following, Cargo heads for the flat area ahead, and the video fades entirely to black. At this point, I was out of theory. Clearly the main objective was finding where Sandy had disappeared to. Had he been betrayed and misled by Exec 05, or was this leading up to something much bigger than I could anticipate? I moved on to the next video, which was much shorter, titled Grinzen, with a description that appeared to have some sort of German poem that when translated came out as,
The flies are flying, a fun dancing experience. Be sad at night, the time will soon come. We have peace there. Our little crosses are standing on the bright side of the road for two, and it's raining and snowing, and the winds come and go.
Now, I didn't want to get too deep into analysing this German poem, but I did have a couple notes, as when the poem wrote,
The time will soon come. Our little crosses are standing.
I wondered if it was potentially foreshadowing Sandy's death. Was he lost forever? With the following lines also reading,
On the bright side of the road for two.
Did this mean after Sandy's death, Cargo and Serene Mist would be the only ones remaining? This poem clearly had multiple ways to be interpreted. But if Sandy was actually dead, hopefully this next video would contain the answers as to why. I hit play. The short video finds us with Cargo and Serene Mist wandering and walking through the flat Abgrund, where they stop to mention how right Exec 111 truly was, in claiming how calming it was to walk in this area.
This place is calming. It's a bit unnerving though.
I agree.
The duo continue walking until the screen goes dark and comes back into what I can only predict is later in time, where the pair have walked even further.
Are we even going the right way?
I hope so.
As they keep on moving, things in the distance start to appear, with Serene Mist voicing how
This place is starting to bother me though.
and with Cargo finally expressing how he thinks this is it, that they'd arrived.
Coincidentally, I think this is it.
And in the distance, two tower-looking structures begin rendering in, with the one on the right appearing to have some sort of light.
There are towers, so we just have to find the right one.
The duo then do one thing I wouldn't have recommended. They split up.
Alright, I'll go this way.
This seemed like an awful idea, but I kept watching only for the tower Cargo was approaching to get bigger and bigger.
There's a really big one over there.
Cargo starts climbing up one of the towers. He approaches the edge, staring at the massive tower ahead, and curiosity clearly builds.
There's nothing up here.
There's nothing here either.
Cargo and Serene Mist quickly group back up together, ready to investigate the massive tower.
It's way different.
It's so bright, I'm not used to that.
Yeah, that's unusual.
Running through the entrance, the duo come across a hole that I couldn't really notice.
There's a hole inside.
Until they got closer. The pair looked confused. Clearly, Cargo and Serene Mist were hesitant, looking down and to my best guess, contemplating whether to jump or not.
From what I saw, there's no staircase outside, so this has to be the only way. I'm scared, I don't know if this is safe.
And yet with Serene Mist being nervous, Cargo insists.
It has to be. Exec 111 told us it was. It's the only different tower.
With Serene Mist finally caving in.
We should go in at the same time, or whatever happened to Sandy could happen to one of us.
You're right, do a countdown.
And before I knew it, the countdown was finished, and the duo had jumped into the unknown. At first, this being the last video on the channel took me by surprise. Whoever was running it definitely didn't want all these newfound eyes to witness anything rushed. However, after only a few days, more videos were then released, with one of the newest having a description reading,
Has he done anything even remotely productive since we last checked up on him?
From what I recall, no. He seems to only be doing this because we talked to him.
That is quite embarrassing, honestly. I don't think she'd take kindly to that. Have this much power and do nothing about it. Must be great being him.
I agree. Apparently, he does know most things about the situation in his quadrant. However, it doesn't really seem like it, especially considering the fact we had to push him to make a change. Hopefully, Thomas can give him a reality check. That is, if there's even anything you can do now.
This was sounding awfully similar to the roundtable conversation that the higher-ups were previously having, almost as if they too were watching Architect's every move, observing any of his possible wrongdoings, and waiting for him to trip up. The video picks back up with Execo 5 back in the White Room, the same White Room he had previously left Sandy in, where he opens up his chat box to type in a teleport command taking him back to Limbo. It's here he walks the hallways, before crossing, of all people, Architect. What is he doing here? Where did he come from? Execo 5 seems to be entirely thrown off, as Architect talks as if he was expecting 05.
Ah, Thomas.
The two pause before launching into a full and eerie conversation.
What a surprise to see you here.
Snap.
Execo 5 knows he's in trouble. He's been made.
What seems to be the matter? Well, I already know what you've been up to.
Shut up. You know this place is sick. Even she wouldn't control it to the extent you do.
She? We're back again to talking about this mysterious woman.
You don't have to bring her into the conversation. Listen, if you try that again, I will end you.
05 backs up quickly to this threat, and judging by the pause, Architect wasn't messing around. Execo 5 quickly follows up with a reply.
You can't even control them yourself. 09 called you, and you told us to do it.
Wait, hold on. To do it? As in to help Sandy and his friends escape?
I told you all to deal with the anomalies. What's so difficult about following simple orders?
They're my friends, Ark. You locked my friends into this twisted place, and the other keepers.
I understand that.
So we finally have a name for them all. The higher-ups, as I've called them, are known as keepers. Interesting.
Though you signed everything that was handed to you.
My best guess to this was that Architect was talking about how Execo 5 had first originally joined the exec organization.
You don't think you'd lose some sort of humanity from that?
I didn't know.
Well, that's on you. You're weak and fragile, easily manipulated.
To me, this sounded as if Execo 5 was potentially forced or convinced to sign off the life of his friends, or at least his, to join the execs.
I just want my friends back.
Execo 5 suddenly drops into a rage.
I want everything to be fine. Frick you and everything you stand for.
Rushing and running through the hallways as he yells at Architect.
Thomas, come back here. I'm going to end you.
And Execo 5, or as we also know him as Thomas, jumps into Upgrund. This short video didn't have as much in terms of hints. However, the way Execo 5 had jumped into Upgrund without an honest plan only left me wondering if maybe he was about to fulfill his promise to Sandy. Either way, I'd have to leave it to the next video, as even this next video's description seemed to be oddly cryptic.
These days come, and they go. Sometimes they're inspiring, sometimes they bring you down. Even when the rain is pouring, you still find time to be with your closest friends. Despite everything, there is something or someone you care for, and likewise for you, they care.
But with only the video to prove otherwise, I hit play. As this next video opens up, it's almost unrecognizable, with Minecraft but this time in shaders, and friendly names popping up on screen in a very, very unfamiliar scenery.
It's so damn foggy.
It is.
Let's sit down here for a bit.
The camera angle switches, showing what I can only guess is some sort of flashback video to Sandy and Cargo before they were infected with the unknown brain disease.
School is so tiring sometimes, and to think we are just a few months from going to college.
It kinda creeps me out.
Same. The sky isn't really the prettiest today.
It's unclear where exactly the duo are, but as the two friends sit in the pouring rain, something is oh so peaceful about it.
Wish I could stare for a bit longer. The rain is messing with my eyes.
I know, right? It's kinda relaxing to just stare into nothing.
It is.
The conversation grows deeper and also slightly darker.
It makes me actually think, like, what purpose do we even have? What goal are we supposed to achieve, and why is it just taken away from you when you die? It's really cruel.
Andrew interrupts Matthew's darker thoughts with pure optimism.
But it's worth it. Like, even if nothing matters, even if nothing would change if I never even existed, at least I get to live. At least I get to meet people like you. At least I can have friends or people who understand me, who acknowledge how truly messed up this world is.
The pair of friends pause, before Matthew jumps back into the conversation.
The best way to go through all this might be to just ignore it, as much as it's hard sometimes.
The two then start discussing how school is going to potentially make them split ways, with Andrew saying,
"It makes me really sad."
And Matthew following up with how the duo have their ups and downs, but that they will always have each other's backs.
"Never once did I think to leave you behind, Matthew."
We have our ups and downs, and that's fine, honestly.
Yeah.
The duo watch the rain for a moment together.
Anyways, I'm gonna leave for now.
And as Andrew begins to leave, he turns back around one more time.
I hope to see you again soon.
Now, from the way the video ended and how Andrew said,
"Never once did I think to leave you behind, Matthew,"
it made me wonder if this was in fact pure foreshadowing, because Cargo had jumped into the darkness with Serene Mist and Sandy had disappeared previously alone. It was refreshing seeing the two friends talk in such a trustful and safe manner, compared to the rushing conversations of escape we had pretty much seen the entire way through these videos. And with the last video on the channel titled Les Fleurs, meaning the flowers in French, having a description writing,
"Maybe things just have to come to an end sometimes, nearly paramount to growth despite the loss. Everyone has a destiny. Some find it sooner than others, some later on, though some may try to force their vision of your destiny upon you. In the end, it's only your own that prevails. Things are tough in this world. Nobody ever wants to lose someone close to them. We've seen it countless times. It ends up okay. At least, that's what we hope. When your fate is sealed, eventually you have to accept it. It might be difficult at first, but you will have to. I'm sorry. We all are. But it's reality. You may hope to see each other again, maybe one day. But for now, it's goodbye."
I had no idea what to expect. Was this really the end? The video opens in the most disturbing way ever. Are you ready? By watching this slower and closely, we can see very clearly from the first image what looked like lilac flowers. Then, Matthew sitting alone on the bench in the previous video, Execo 5's white room, the inside of Sandy and Cargo's castle, the limbo door to the experiment that started all of this off, and the very house they once lived in. And lastly, a mysterious book. Maybe the journal that Sandy had come across in the corrupted world. Who knows? The video cuts to black, and then words begin to type on screen.
Hello?
It's Cargo. The camera pans over to what looks like some sort of village.
Oh my god.
Is that the previous castle from earlier? After staring in pure shock for a moment, Cargo starts to approach closer until he comes across a water fountain, staring it down before noticing items in picture frames stuck onto what seemed like someone's storage or shopfront. He eventually makes his way to the door with a sign reading "The Pork Shop," where he enters only to see benches and tables similar to any village you would come across. Nothing exactly spectacular has been spotted by Cargo until he makes his way back out of the pork shop and begins following the narrow pathway carved out of darkness, leading again to another sign, Thomas's house. We've never seen this house before, but Cargo seems awfully familiarized with its surroundings, considering that after all, Execo 5 is Thomas. And so Cargo heads in, wasting no time and heading for the centered ladder, only to climb up and turn around to see for the very first time the castle that one, the friendly duo, had planned on building, and two, where Sandy has gone missing a couple videos prior. But of course, Cargo doesn't know this, and so he moves quickly, making his way out of the house and over to the castle to investigate, typing,
"Just like I remembered it."
He heads over to one of the previous corners of the castle where Sandy had also been, only to be greeted by a sign that, wait, wasn't there before?
Andrew was here.
Had Sandy survived? What about the trapdoor he had fell into? Cargo makes his way to the center of the castle, facing the small pond and the flowers surrounding it.
Of course.
Of course what? I noticed Cargo throughout this part of the video would pause weirdly at certain moments, such as now, when walking towards the stairs and noticing the enchanting table. It's hard to tell what the reason is for these pauses. However, after shortly doing so, he makes his way to the top of the castle stairs, noticing a mushroom in a pot that was also not here when Sandy had previously done his rounds of the castle. He had to be close. He had to still be alive. Regardless, Cargo's quick exploration continues, where he eventually ends back up in front of the small pond that he had paused at earlier, and it's here the screen falls to darkness. But the video isn't finished yet, as we find ourselves back in the darkness of Upgrund. Without even having to guess who this was, I had a feeling it was no other than Thomas, better known as Execo 5. And as he swings around gathering a quick bearing of his surroundings, the white figure Serene Mist and Cargo had previously met, known as Exec 111, is spotted in the distance, with Execo 5 making his way over to him quickly.
Thomas!
What do you want?
What's happening?
Everything is going downhill.
Execo 5 turns into the darkness, looking back at the white exec before heading into what seemed like some sort of bunker, taking him somewhere I would have never expected. Suddenly, we find ourselves in what seems like the white room, with the very same table and chairs. However, this room isn't so white. An Exec 05 turns around and breaks what seems to be a wall, where we're greeted by a beautiful orange and yellow sky, almost as if someone had chosen to mix paint in the atmosphere. And again, the screen goes back to black. Back to Cargo's perspective. Only this time, having walked out of the castle and now heading towards a small cobblestone structure. As Cargo gets closer, a signpost is also seen hanging from one of the blocks, reading Zombie Spawner. And with everything else discovered, Cargo heads down, quickly finding a chest and a long water drop, that without a moment's hesitation, he takes the leap, landing right into the water below and within walls of a deep tunnel. He walks the corner, discovering the zombie spawner, and it was here I realized that this was the very zombie spawner that both Sandy and Cargo had previously discussed building in one of their simulated memories. However, what catches Cargo's attention the most is the dark patch above, where he approaches to get a better look before turning back up and climbing up the ladder, reaching the top and finding out that things are wildly different. Every structure is gone, and as he continues to pause in the pitch black, the wall in front of him breaks. Wait, a wall? Execo 5 can be seen.
Matthew, hurry up. We gotta go right now.
What the heck, you just broke the void.
It's here the two paths we have been watching throughout this video have now crossed. Thomas and Matthew are now reunited. It's just a matter of finding Sandy and Serene Mist.
Yes, that's all an illusion. We have to get out of here. Now!
But Serenimist?
Yes, exactly. Where exactly was Serene Mist, and better yet, where was Sandy?
Don't worry about her right now. We have to leave her behind for now. Just jump down here. I'll follow you.
Okay.
Cargo didn't seem to need much more convincing. Trusting his old friend to follow up on his word later on, he jumps down the side of the path, and the screen cuts to something I would have never expected. We find ourselves with Sandy in a meadow of colourful flowers paired with a peaceful night sky, yet a windy presence. He walks for a good moment before coming across a tree in the distance, illuminated by the moonlight, acting as a beacon to where Sandy was supposed to go. And so he goes, walking through the blaring winds until he arrives, looking around, expecting someone, something, to turn up. But no one does, until wait, Sandy catches sight of two figures in the distance. And as they get closer and closer, Sandy recognizes the two figures. It's Cargo and Execo 5.
I miss you guys.
We missed you too, buddy. Welcome to the garden.
The garden?
I haven't been here myself yet. It really is like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
It's so beautifully peaceful, and it makes me very happy that it's just us three again.
We have been through so much stuff. I just want to know the reason behind it all. Why is it that we have to be locked in this place? Will we ever be the same again?
It's hard to tell, despite what we have been through. We are all together here now, aren't we?
I guess so.
Sandy seems sad yet relieved that the trio have finally found themselves back together.
But it's hard to tell what's in the future for us.
As Sandy looks back up at the tree again, still basking in the luminance from the moon above, and Execo 5 and Cargo taking in the peaceful solitude that is the garden, Sandy turns back to the hills, and someone can be spotted in the distance. It's Architect. What is he doing here? He stops to stare at the trio.
Dude.
Taking some time off, aren't you?
Architect rushes closer.
Anomalies. Frauds. They're synonymous, really.
Assuming you're the higher up here, what makes you think that what you're doing is okay?
He stops to stare at the trio. Architect then pauses for a moment, staring directly at Sandy before replying,
What makes you believe that? You can question my decisions. I mean, Sandy, you're the first of the anomalies. You've been through it all, haven't you?
I've experienced it firsthand. Yeah, having to go through your ultimate scheme. At least, your scheme, as far as I know. Don't you think it's a little bit unfair that you get to decide what happens to you for the rest of our lives? Maybe you aren't even the one in charge. You act as a puppet in the actual grand scheme of things.
Sandy had accidentally hit the nail somewhat on its head unknowingly, because of course, Architect wasn't in charge of everything, but solely the sector Sandy had been looping inside of.
You don't let us fulfill our own destiny. Do you really think that you're a god?
That's enough. Being one of the keepers, it is my duty to contain you all here.
And what if the keepers see you as weak? From what I can tell, all you've done is sit back and watch as everything unfolds.
Execo 5 is clearly picking at Architect's nerves.
Thomas, don't you dare. The keepers, they respect me. I respect them.
Everything pauses for a moment, with even Sandy holding his breath.
My intentions are clear. I wish to contain the vessel within their respective worlds. I asked you this earlier, didn't I? You, being an exec, it's your job to listen to my orders.
Sandy can't help but look back at his friends.
I didn't though. Did that make you mad? Seeing one of your trustworthy execs disobey you, shamelessly.
It's pathetic.
It seems Execo 5 is really trying to get under Architect's skin, trying to manipulate him. But what for exactly?
All these questions about what do I gain from this? What do you gain from this? You've gone all this way, only to disobey me, to disobey her.
I gathered whoever her was had to be the leader of all of this.
You didn't just bring her up? You literally told me to not do that.
So, you can listen to orders, is what you're saying.
Sandy cuts in, joining in on antagonizing Architect.
Tell me, how powerful are you? Really? Are you truly the powerful being you make yourself out to be? Or is it a facade?
Sandy keeps going, because now more than ever, the dynamic has seemed to have changed.
You don't even dare use my real name. Are you this afraid of me?
Architect is the one being threatened. Sandy does not take his foot off the gas.
Do you know that I've gained a large amount of control?
Back off.
Or were you too afraid, so you ignored it? You are weak.
Suddenly, the screen begins to grow lighter. It seems Sandy, during his time between simulations and his own loop, he had managed to develop some type of superpower?
What the heck did you just do?
I'm not really sure. He disappeared though. Wait, Thomas. We are down here because you mentioned a back door, right?
Yeah, I said there was a back door. But in reality, I don't know if it actually exists. It was a blind guess from rumors I had heard among other execs.
This was a rumor? Not even a full plan?
So we don't really have a way out?
I mean, this place is pretty calming. Also, doesn't this mean the other execs can also get here? Because you clearly managed.
They don't have anyone to receive orders from.
Exec begins to explain how the execs are essentially the keeper's puppets. And since there was no current goal of any sorts, they wouldn't be able to do much. But why they needed a goal, I had no idea. Although as Cargo stared at the moon and the flowers below, Sandy realizes something is off. Can you feel it too?
Is that just me?
I know what you're talking about. I feel it too.
She's coming.
The music grows slightly dreamier, and a high-pitched whistle can be heard. This realm, this flowery meadow, was Jacinth's office, and the back door Execo 5 had heard about was, to some chance, in fact the entrance.
I must say, it is quite unexpected seeing you here.
I could say the same for you.
Who are you?
My name is Jacinth. I am the caretaker. Having visitors is not something you see every day.
The atmosphere grows to feel serene and peaceful.
I never thought this would happen.
Thomas, dear, I do not show myself. You know that, yes?
I do. Why are you here now, though?
Well, a vessel eliminating a keeper. Fascinating, isn't it?
It is, but like how? Isn't that impossible?
Not necessarily. Andrew may be powerful, but this is new. My vision has always been to maintain peace within the concept.
So you created the concept?
Indeed. My intentions were never to cause harm, that you can blame on the keepers. Though, creating such an extravagant multiverse, it can be difficult to keep a proper structure. It is a shame it had to end up like this.
So, for the vessels, this is meant to serve as a safe haven?
Your assumptions are accurate. Though, the impossibility of my vision is something I never considered. Your actions provoked something in me. That impossibility has been acknowledged.
Jacinth begins to explain how and why the garden is the way it is. From the flowers...
Each flower you see around us is a representation of the vessels within this very multiverse. After having cared for them for so long, it is not something I can let go of.
To then the tree.
This tree you see before me, it is what gives life to these vessels.
What? This tree is the tree of life for the concept?
Or, in simpler words, this tree represents the entirety of the concept.
But this is torture. Why can't you just let us go?
Jacinth pauses, somewhat looking around, thinking about her next answer.
It is beyond me, caring for the vessels, the residents, anyone within the regions of this place.
What did she mean by this if she was the ringleader of the entire concept?
There has to be a way. We can't just stay here forever. It's like hell.
Jacinth begins to explain how there wasn't a way out, and that there was no way to ever free the vessels, meaning that the trio were never going to escape. But Sandy is far more determined, going on to say,
Is there a way to destroy the concept?
What are you implying?
If we can't be freed, then I'd rather let everyone's souls rest. This is not our destiny. This is not what we all deserve.
Jacinth, after pausing for a short moment, she comes up with a response to Sandy's desperation.
I cannot continue this. It breaks my heart seeing your distress. I will leave you here.
She vanishes, leaving the trio out of words.
Andrew, what are you thinking?
There has to be a way.
Jacinth, wait.
And yet Cargo is still able to communicate with Jacinth.
What's the matter?
I'm sorry.
Don't be, it is only fair. I will leave you to it.
Does she just accept the destruction of the concept?
What do we do?
I might have something in mind.
And that is?
A sacrifice.
What does Sandy mean by this?
Don't you dare, Andrew!
It's the only way. What she would have wanted. She's too attached and is unable to let go though.
Cargo hits back at Sandy's offer to sacrifice himself.
Andrew, it's not worth it.
This is the best option, guys. It was a great ride.
Please.
I know it hurts.
But Sandy believes this is the only option, the best option.
No loop will ever have to play again. No exec will ever have to be in the hands of a higher up. And while we aren't free anymore, nor will we ever be in any possible world.
And with everything said and done, with every goodbye spoken, well, I'll let the video finish the rest of the story.
Matthew, run! It's collapsing!